The Living Clean podcast is not affiliated with Narcotics Anonymous, nor do we speak on behalf of NA as a whole. We are simply members sharing our personal experiences and perspectives in recovery-based discussions. The opinions expressed here are our own and not those of Narcotics Anonymous as a fellowship. This is the Living Clean podcast. This podcast is not meant to replace meetings, sponsorship, step work, or service. This podcast is meant to be another tool in your recovery toolbox. Our guests are here to share their experience, strength, and hope with recovery through Narcotics Anonymous. Thank you for joining us. All right, welcome back to the Living Clean podcast. This is Mason S. and I'm an addict. We are back for a very special bonus episode. As our listeners know, we recently just had an event in my hometown of Hohenwald, Tennessee called the Speaker Jam. And this year, for the first time, we were trying something a little different with our panel discussion. So we invited people from all over to sit down in this new format. Those of you that may be familiar with a format called the Ask It Basket, where people in the group or in the crowd can write in questions, and then that's then put in a basket and it's passed through a panel of members who set up on the stage and answer these questions one by one. Now this format is similar to that. However, I wanted this to be more podcast style. So it is more like a live podcast interview with 4 people, which I thought it turned out interesting. Now, what is not so great is the audio per se, but it's not bad. Also, we forgot to hit record right before the introductions. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to the people that are on the panel. First, we have Boyd P. from North Carolina. You may know Boyd from this work that he does on NA history with his good friend Chris B. Next on the panel would be Amy K., also from North Carolina. Next would be our co-host with the most, Francis C. from California. And last but certainly not least, good friend of the podcast, JW from Tupelo, Mississippi. So without further ado, here is the panel discussion from the 2025 Speaker Jam. Hope you enjoy.
Okay, so this first phase of questioning is obviously in the getting clean, and it relates to how they got kind of started. And since ladies are first, I have asked Amy to answer, when did you first realize that you were an addict?
I'm an addict named Amy. And I think I realized I was an addict long before I admitted it, so I want to say that first. But I think I realized it as I became more isolated. And, I literally would park my car 4 or 5 blocks from where I lived and closed all the blinds so nobody knew I was in there. And just, a prisoner with drugs all day long. It was really depressing and horrible to that. And then there was another time when I overdosed and they had called my mom. And seeing her face in that hospital looking at me, and that shame just really, really... So I know this is a bit graphic, but that's really when I think about when did I know I was an addict. I think about those things. And my consequences were really more internal than external. So I think the shame, for me, the shame just became so heavy. And I would just use more and more and stay clean less and less between using. And again, that finding ways and means to get more became that desperate, hollow That's what I cared about. And the losses. I mean, people who loved me were watching me hurt myself. And, you know, I lost things, dreams. And, you know, in my younger days, I blew a scholarship to one of the best universities in the country because of addiction. And so I think about those things. And I think those, and when I awakened to the reality of that, is when I really realized I was an addict.
All right, that's a way to get started. I'm going to come to you next, Boyd.
Okay.
What was your first exposure to Narcotics Anonymous? When did you become aware that there was an entity out there called Narcotics Anonymous?
So I'm Boyd, I'm an addict. So my stepdad, I met my stepdad when I was 18 years old. And my stepdad he was a counselor working at a place called Fellowship Hall in Greensboro. And he moved in right beside the apartment my mother lived in. My mom and dad had been divorced for, 4 or 5 years. And Hank was a member of AA, had about 6 years at the time. And I don't specifically recall him talking about NA at that particular time, but I know that, 18, within 3 years, my addiction had taken off pretty big time. And Hank and Mom had moved down out of town down to Raleigh. And that's when he actually had approached me and said, you know, they've got this thing called Narcotics Anonymous these days. And it's something that you might be interested in. And it's like, no, Hank, I'm good. I can handle this. You know, and so for 6 more years, I handled it all right. So anyway, but it was, when I finally was ready to start doing something different, Hank actually brought me, he said, Boyd, they've published a book. They've got a book of their own. And so he brought me one, and this was in 1986.
Thank you, Boyd. All right, Francis, we're going to move on to the co-host with the most, Francis. Yeah. Francis, what was the scariest thing about getting clean?
Francis, the scariest thing about getting clean, I think the scariest thing was probably not having anything to temper my feelings. You know, like there was, I think I cried for probably the first 9 months every time I went to a meeting. Everything that I was trying to keep down was coming up, and like not knowing if I would ever get off that like emotional roller coaster. You know, like when am I going to get my footing? So I think that was like facing my feelings was the scariest thing.
All right, thank you, Francis. JW, I know I asked Boyd a similar question, but I'm aware of your story, and I'd like for you to tell us about how you got introduced to NA and where you first discovered it.
Well, I was locked up in a Texas penitentiary, and I went to the bathroom one day, and there was a book called The Introductory Guide to Narcotics Anonymous laying on the floor by the commode, and I like to read while things are going on, you know. But, you know, it kind of goes along with that question about when did you realize you were an addict? I had never thought I was an addict. This was in 97. I got locked up in 96. And in the 80s, when crack came on the scene, I saw some of my friends, it decimated their lives. And, you know, my brain was so hijacked, I thought, they're so pitiful, you know, and I really felt bad that they did that. And I bought a ton of crack, but I never smoked none of it because I'd buy them from my renter friends, and they were very compliant, and I liked the shit out of crack. But when I found this book, the first thing in it is RIP, Am I an Addict? And I started reading it, and it amazed me at how spot on these questions were. And I had never thought. Of course, I answered 29 questions. I'd answered yes to pretty much every one of them. But the thing that really got me to thinking was, it says the actual number of U.S. responses wasn't as important as how we felt inside and how addiction had affected our lives. And so I didn't know about the disease. I didn't know about the brain. I didn't know. I was very ignorant. I had no idea what Narcotics Anonymous was. I just knew that these questions really defined me. And so that's kind of how I got introduced to Narcotics Anonymous, and the rest is history.
I love that story. For a person that's done H&I and been involved in PR, and sometimes you go in there and you feel like, that feeling starts to come over you like, I'm not really making a difference. I'm not seeing any of these people get clean. And you don't even know that maybe the pamphlet that you took in and you left there and didn't even think nothing about is the key for somebody to find the fellowship. So I love that story.
Well, let me say this. 10 years after I got out of prison, I was in Texas. I got busted in Louisiana too, so I was on paper there. I had to come back through Louisiana to come to Mississippi. Southern Zonal Forum was having a workshop one weekend on H&I, and Friday night we went to Memphis, Tennessee. Now think of the geographic. These two guys from Oklahoma came down and was doing that H&I workshop. We were staying in this big ass hotel. And phenomenal workshop. I learned H&I was my passion after I got out of prison. And so the next morning I go down to my car, and there's probably at least 400 parking spaces in this parking lot. And the dude that was from Oklahoma was parked right beside me by coincidence. And so I'm talking to him over the top of my car, and I said, what's weird is you came from Oklahoma. I was locked up 15 miles south of the Oklahoma line. And he gets this weird look on his face. He goes, what town was that? And I said, Bonham, Texas. He said, I used to do H&I in those two prisons there. I said, what year? And he said, 97. I said, no, I was there in 97. I ain't never met you. He said, well, the counselor relapsed and got fired. And so we couldn't come in anymore. When that happened, I was on another unit. They put me on a chain bus to send me to a contract prison that this private company had contracted with the state of Texas to hold inmates. We got to the gate, and they stopped us and said, oh, wait a minute, you got 3 too many on the bus. You got to get 3 off. And the dude looks at his roster and he says, oh, I got 3 W's. He said, get them off. So I didn't get to go to that private facility. And they sent me to this other place where I found the book. So I didn't have a higher power at that time. I didn't believe in nothing. But looking back on that, I think it was God doing for me, what I couldn't do for myself, and knew I needed what that guy had left in the. And I found out it works how and why a couple of weeks after I found that, and it just blew my mind of how. I watched a lot of Jane Goodall documentaries where she's out in the jungle, watching chimpanzees and shit, and making notes. And I thought, these motherfuckers been hiding in the bushes, watching us, and, like scientists and shit, I had no idea it was addicts writing about themselves, I had no idea. So, anyway, I wanted to tell that part too.
So I'm going to come back to Amy. One of the hardest things it is to do, especially after the life we live, is learn how to trust people again. Do you remember the person that you first sort of trusted in the fellowship?
That's a really good question. And before I go further, I just want to say thank you to Mason and to all of y'all for this event. And you can just feel, we went to the World Convention this past year, and the theme was the power of love. And man, you could really feel it here. And I just want to put that out there and tell y'all that and say thank you.
Hear, hear.
don't know when. I can't think of any one moment that I trusted a certain person, but I did get that there was some magic happening, and reluctantly, and I would say, I was reluctant to sort of grasp onto that at first. I was the gal who would come in the meeting last, and I was the first one out the door, and I stared at the floor for a long time before I even lifted my head up. But there was a woman who I've since, after years of knowing her, she was the first woman in the Carolinas to get clean, and went to a lot of, and I liked her right off. She had a shirt on that said, "Women belong in the House and the Senate." And so I liked her right off, and and we just developed a connection. And I would really, when she shared, I would really, really listen. Number one, she made sense to me. And so again, I don't know that it was any one thing, but, and I've shared this many times, people would open their mouths and my thoughts and some of my feelings were being spoken through other people. And so it was that process of believing in the process. And I had a magnet on my refrigerator for years that said, "Believe in possibility." And so I began to believe the process of recovery, I think probably before any one particular person, but that woman really did help me. And the first time I went into a meeting and really shared from my heart and, tears escaping my eyes, she came up and hugged me and put this little card in my pocket, and I didn't realize it until I got home. And it just said, "We love you. God loves you. Please keep coming back." And so, oops. And so, when she did that, and maybe it seems like a little thing to y'all, but that was a huge thing to me.
You should take it.
And I've passed, that card has since made its way around to many other women, I hope. But that, and then my first sponsor, literally found me. We were sitting out, I was a heavy smoker back then, standing outside smoking a cigarette, and this woman came up to me and we just started talking. And now we're in Asheville, North Carolina, and it turns out we grew up 15 minutes apart from each other in Pennsylvania. So we struck up a conversation, and there were some similarities. And, she had been to a treatment center I was very familiar with. Anyway, I began to trust her, and she became my first sponsor. And so I'd say that was probably the first person I really entrusted with some of the things I was reluctant to share in a meeting. And that woman really helped me work the steps. She really did. She has since moved away. But, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
I'm not on the panel, but one of the things that I love about NA, you notice how that thing fell off the wall and how people just got up and went over there and picked it up and did what they were supposed to do. Yeah. Nobody had to ask them to do it. That's recovery in action. It's awesome. Boyd, I'm going to come to you next, and so it's along the lines of these early recovery practices. What were some of the things that you've seen inside of an NA meeting that you started to realize that, hey, I may have a place here? What was attractive?
Well, the very first meeting that I went to, actually, it's not true. The second meeting that I went to, because I went and I said, that's great for these people, but I'm going to try it my way. And so I made these goals to stop doing this particular substance. And 6 months later, I'm, in more debt than I was then because I couldn't stop that particular substance. And that's when I came in with Ernest and said, let's give this a try. But what I think about this often, there were two guys that as I was walking up, they came up to me and introduced themselves and said, "Are you new here?" And it's like, yeah, this is the second meeting I've ever been to. Been over in 6 months. And they said, well, come on in, let's get a cup of coffee and do this. And so they welcomed me in And, I think about that often. What would it have been like if I had come up and there would have been a lot of cold shoulders and very cliquish and stuff like that? Because that warm experience there, Mason, I don't know. It just, it got me wanting to come back, okay? And here's what I know. I had that moment of clarity to get me to the meeting, which was, I'm 29 years old. All my peers that I graduated from high school were married. They graduated from college. I'm not doing a real good job of living life. So why don't I give this thing called NA a try, And that was what really and truly allowed me to open that closed mind just a little bit. Because I wasn't really sure about this place at all, I wasn't sure I wanted what you guys had, but I was damn sure aware that what I was doing wasn't working. And that's what started the process.
Awesome. All right, Francis, you ready?
I'm ready.
You're
Check.
ready. Okay, so this is kind of a deep question, but you're kind of a deep person, right? So, has anybody ever saved you a seat, literally or figuratively?
Has anybody what?
Ever saved you a seat?
Saved me?
Saved you a seat, a chair.
Has anyone ever saved you a seat?
Has anybody ever saved me a seat? I think every time we pray, we take a moment of silence for the addict that still suffers. We save a seat for the addict that still suffers. I suffered from it for a long time. So, you saved me a seat up here, right? You asked me to come share in Tennessee in the home group. There was a seat for me last night at the dark side. People save me seats all the time. That's the great thing about Narcotics Anonymous. Has anybody ever saved me? That's not that deep of a question. You can do better than that. We could go.
So let's play to your strengths then, okay? Let's swap the roles. How do you make other people feel loved?
I have to think back about when I first came into Narcotics Anonymous, and I felt the magic of Narcotics Anonymous from the very first meeting. I fucking planted my freak flag in NA. I got hugs. People gave me phone numbers. They told me to come back. I didn't know really what that was about. I read about it in the We Do Recover, that wordless language of recognition, belief, and faith, where we could feel time, touch reality, all that good Jimmy Kinnon stuff, and I think that was some of the magic of Narcotics Anonymous. Was I was feeling it right from the start. I heard Ron H. share not too long ago about, the steps are kind of like the dressing on the wall, but the traditions are like the foundation, that from which we're built, and the newcomers feel the traditions first. And so I was feeling that first. The only requirement for membership is a desire. That empathy stirred my desire, right? And so I think that was some of it. It looks like it's a real close game. I could see it on their faces back there. Chase had to go outside to get some tobacco in his lip. It's kind of like that. The magic of the Tennessee game. In Narcotics Anonymous, you can really feel the magic. Thanks.
Well, that's it. Thanks, Francis. So we're going to toss. We're going to stay on that line there, and we're going to toss JW a softball here. What is it that is special about the power of the serpent to you?
So this is kind of a lesson to learn when people you don't like are sharing. And there was this girl. She's fucking hyper religious. She's racist as shit, homophobic. And she started sharing one night. She told us all, you're going to be at the foot of the Father one of these days, and you're going to have to answer. I said, bitch, I ain't answering shit. Get the fuck out of it. You know, I mean, in my head, I didn't say it out loud. But she started talking one night, and I almost got up and walked out. And she got to this one part. I can't remember nothing, because I didn't listen to some of her stuff. Anyway, she got to this part. She says, I love this circle. And my mind exploded with memories of all the circles I've been, when I had those pivotal moments in my life that somebody said something that went inside of me and it opened up a place that I could not get to without what they shared that night. And it was so profound. And I couldn't stop talking about it after the meeting. So the next day, Patrick sent me a picture of our chairs in a circle. And we had our anniversary coming up that year. And I said, that's our theme. I love the circle. And so, this next Saturday is our 44th year. And you're talking about somebody saving a seat. I didn't get there for 17 years, and they saved me a seat because they knew I was coming. They didn't know my name, but they knew I was coming. And I've been sitting in that seat since 1998. And so many things have happened in that circle all over the fucking world. And I can feel that energy some nights in our meetings. It's like we walk in and we bring this thing in with us. All these chairs don't do nothing. They can't do anything. I mean, they're holding us up right now, but it's only because we're sitting in them. But when we come in these rooms, I said it last night, we are the disease's worst nightmare. That somebody's don't stand a chance when we're shoulder to shoulder. I can't do it without you. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to start talking, I kind of call this portion spiritual awakenings and growth. So, Amy, if you don't mind, so I'm assuming that you have some form of a higher power if you're here today, most likely. Has that changed over time? How has that looked over time, the change in the growth of a higher power since you first arrived?
That's a great question. Yes, I would certainly say that my concept of a higher power and my connection with a higher power has certainly evolved over time. I, like many people, struggled with the whole God thing when I got here because of some things from my childhood. And so for me, there was a real shift when my first higher power was y'all, and many times it still is. It's a power greater than me. We greater than me. So it's a constant process of moving from the me to the we. And when I stay in the we, I'm much more connected with what I value, what brings me peace and joy, and what is the loving thing in my life. And how can I serve, how can I be of service and spread that around. So, what happened for me was I had to let go of God to welcome in a higher power. That was sort of my process. And y'all have heard me call it the great outdoors, because nature is really what grounds me. It's what connects me, and I was very blessed to get clean in Asheville, North Carolina. And I don't know how many miles I drove back and forth up to the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I would just sit there and be quiet and just see what happened, and see what would come up for me, and feel that connection. It grounded me. I'd sit on the ground and look at nature, and he'll tell you, I'm out there watching birds, garden, anything outdoors, which still brings me that peace and grounds me so that I can move into what's next. What do I do next? I hope I'm making sense. I don't want to ramble on here. So there is sort of my process, and it is ever evolving. As I've aged, things have changed. I've slowed down quite a bit since I retired. And there's been that kind of void. I think Ron, and I had briefly touched on that the other day. And so what's going to fill that? What do I fill that with? And I'm just putting it out, and I trust the universe. When I put it out there and I'm sincere and I'm seeking with divine intent, then things come to me. Answers, situations, people. So I guess that's how I connect now. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. So, Boyd.
Yeah.
So what's one spiritual principle that you really struggle with? And then this two-part question. And then on the other side, which one that you feel like you really do well with?
Wow.
Okay. I don't really know if it's a spiritual principle, but I struggle with self-centeredness a lot, and still struggle with it today. I'm in a wonderful relationship with Amy, and I still struggle with. These days it's like I have traveled a lot for NA events, and Amy and I haven't necessarily taken the time to do our own traveling just together. And I've started feeling really kind of guilty about that, not necessarily taking some time for my primary relationship. And that's been the current one right there. If she continues to tolerate me, I'll continue to experience some more of this stuff. But, the flip side of that coin is we've got to experience a lot of cool things by traveling to these events. One that I think that I've got a handle on. I can't attest to having a handle on any of them. To be honest with you, this is not a spiritual principle. It's probably a character defect. Laziness is the thing that kicks my ass most these days. Okay? I hate to say it, but I have determined that I have to have some sort of productivity in my life to feel good about Boyd. Okay? And so, I can get by with just being a slug for a day. That's fine. But 2 days, 3 days, we're starting to get into a no feel-good zone there for sure. So I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but that's what came up.
I'll take it. All right, Francis. We'll go easy this time. So what does surrender mean to you today?
Well, are there ties in college football? I don't know. I don't understand the culture, so I'm just like, do we surrender? If there's a tie or is there overtime? Help me out with is it time to surrender? Okay. I'm just reading. I'm like, I better pull this up. It looks pretty good back there. Surrender. I think it's a struggle. For me, it's a struggle, especially if I think I'm right about something. I'm like, if I think I'm right, I'm probably wrong. At least wrong in my approach. Why can't I let other people be wrong? Basic text talks about that, letting other people be wrong. What is surrender to me? Is that the question?
Yeah, what does surrender mean to you?
I think it's letting go of control. And trusting somehow a higher power is going to guide you into the next thing. And if I'm in that control, am I practicing faith in a higher power? If I'm trying to manage things, do I believe in group conscience? Do I think that I know more than the group? Sometimes I do. And it's a real wrestling match. The steps, I think that all the steps are founded on surrender. I think there's a lot of spiritual principles that are universal in the steps, but the one that I squeeze the most out of each step is figuring out how to surrender. And it's kind of like, I make the same mistake 1,000 different ways, like around, like control and all that stuff, and then I have to find another way to surrender, like from another approach, like whether it be getting strung out on shoes or ice cream or relationships or or obsessing on going to the Memphis archive, and if I surrender it, it still managed to happen, so like whatever that is like I have to let it go and trust that somehow it's going to work out. I wanted to go visit an author's family, but I wanted to drag 10 other people with me, like on my quest. I had to surrender that. I'm like, well, maybe there's another time I'm coming to Nashville where there's a better opportunity. And like I got to practice that in that restaurant yesterday, that I have to let this thing go or I'm not going to meet Gina's brother. Like that was my own personal trip. I'm like, okay, I'm going to let it go. And let God be in charge of it. Have I let it go, or am I just relaxing a little bit? I think I'm relaxing a little. Like I think it's still within God's plan. It's just not right now. Like maybe that's the answer. Is like, okay, not right now. Just relax. Maybe next year they'll beat Georgia. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Francis. JW, I feel like you've already answered this question once, but I feel like you got more than one answer to this question.
Okay.
What's something truly miraculous that you've witnessed inside of it since you've been in recovery?
Well, me staying clean, for one thing. I said I was ignorant when I got clean about NA and the spiritual part of it. I didn't have that. I've seen it. Well, the first miracle I saw was in prison when 105 convicts, the AB, the Klan, the Crips, the Bloods, they had some Hispanic gangs I don't know the name of that were sitting in the back of the room. And when they did How It Works, the guy would go 1, and this whole fucking room would holler, "Weed!" And I looked around and I thought, what the fuck? That ain't right. And then he would go 2, and they do it again. All the way to 11, and then 12, we's over in there, and they did it every day that we had these meetings. And so I look forward to going to that room because I'd look around and I'd see all these people that own the yard. It wasn't we. And I think that was my first higher power. I had no idea what it was. I had read in this book where it says the purpose of the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous becomes clear as we find that dependence on a higher power as we each understand it. And it's got a capital I. And so I had an it. I had no idea what it was. I never heard of going outdoors or what is it?
Great outdoors.
Great outdoors. I heard of good orderly direction. And that was the first time I worked the 3rd step. I couldn't get with God as we understood him. It sounded way too Baptist for me. And, but I think that was really the first miracle I saw of how powerful these words are and how they kept penetrating me in a way. I'd heard the word "we" many times in my life. We gonna whoop your ass, it wasn't a good deal, we gonna lock your ass up, but I think that was the first miracle. I really did. I could go on and on, but I'm not.
So, Amy, is there a passage in the basic text or a sentence, a line, or in any of our forms of literature that really just resonates with you, that, you know, if you wanted a newcomer in here to feel something out of our book, is there a line that you would go to in our literature?
We do recover.
There you go.
That's it. We do recover.
Awesome. Well, that's too short of an answer, so let's go to the next. I can't get you all ready. I'll let you all ready. So, through the step working process, did you find difficulty with any of the steps? I know a lot of people often refer to it. I was really scared about the 4th step, or I was scared about sharing all of that with somebody else. Is there a moment like that throughout the steps for you that, you know, maybe it's the advanced process or whatever? Is there something in the steps that was really scary for you that you had to overcome?
I think the one that was the 4th step and 5th step didn't, you know, rattle me too much, but letting go of my defects of character was the one that, you know, I remember reading it and literally laying in my bed, like in the fetal position, like I don't know that I want, because they were my defense mechanisms. It was how they were survival skills. And so, you know, the thought of letting some of that go, that guardedness, was pretty scary to me. I mean, once I did it and got to the other side of it, that fear certainly subsided, and my faith grew out of that process.
Thank you. All right, boy. So, I know every one of us that has been in here for any time, you go through something, right? Like everybody's trauma is different, but just because we get clean doesn't mean that life doesn't start showing up. So when life shows up for you, what have you learned from the fellowship? What are your go-to tools that you put into practice to get through a tough situation?
Lay down and take a nap.
I concur.
Ooh, I love naps.
No, the go-to tools are to call somebody else and start talking about it. Okay? Talk about what's going on. To sit down, and when I've got the clarity of mind to pray and to take a moment and pause, that works real well. But there's a key there. It's the clarity of mind. Like, you know, because I can be in it, and it takes a while to be able to get to that point. So wait a minute, stop, pause. Those are the two right there. And the third one of lay down and take a nap.
Yeah.
So, the spiritual principle.
Have you found yourself in moments, though, where you know exactly what you need to do, but just unwilling to put those into practice?
Well, there's a difference there in knowing what is the right thing to do and being able to do it. Okay? Yeah. So I'm a human being, of course, Moses. So, yeah. You know, and that's when it takes time to pause and to pray for courage. Okay? So is exactly it. Doing the right thing is not as hard these days as it was in the beginning. Okay? In the beginning, it was a new skill, and it was, I mean, it's like, you know, it's like learning how to be honest, and then, you know, and I'm honest on everything when I really should be holding back on some stuff there. You know, it's finding that balance with it. So, these days it's, well, that's not really true. You know, having hard conversations with Amy are definitely hard. So, you know, with my people that are important to me. So, yeah.
Well, I did a terrible job of getting you there, but you got there.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, Francis. So how's your view of step one changed over the years? Or has it?
Well, I think that my view of addiction has changed over the years.
Okay, so expand on that.
Well, first I want to say that if breakfast can be a spiritual principle, you know, like the story, Just Say Yes, says that breakfast is a spiritual principle. I think napping can also be a spiritual principle. maybe we can talk to Ron about somehow getting that into our literature. And I think that it's a great tool when you're feeling powerless. You're like, take a nap. You know, like, so I think that, you know, like when I got clean, one, there was I kind of think about like the end of the fifth tradition, where it says that any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. And like, so there was like this thing about, yeah, I stopped using drugs, but I'm always thinking about it. You know, like I have all these feelings I want to use drugs over. You know, like, and then, you know, like you lose the desire. Like there was something happening in my brain where it dawned on me that I no longer am thinking about drugs. But I got clean when I was 25. I was always thinking about girls, crazy ones. And, you know, like, and then there was, you know, like, and then all kinds of other obsessions, like resentments, and, you know, like I was powerless over a lot of other things. It appears there is overtime in college football. I you know, like, don't understand the culture, but I'm just saying. So there's that, you know, like and then there's find a new way to live, and you know, like where, like I'm better able to live in the moment a lot of times now because my relationship to step one is different now. You know, like I'm better able to let go of things in the moment. You know, like I'm still curious about a lot of stuff. You know, like curiosity still drives me. You know, like trying to understand culture around college football. You know, like that I haven't let go of. You know, like but you know, like it. You know, like there's, or just like the literature, how the literature was put together. I'm curious about that. You know, I'm curious about NA history. You know, like there's stuff that keeps me moving in Narcotics Anonymous that allows me to stay in Narcotics Anonymous. Coming here was a great thing. My wife is struggling with me coming here. You know, like she thought it was a convention. She's like, "You're going to a one-day speaker jam?" You know, like I think I'm in trouble when I get home. You know, like so. But I am trying to stay in the moment and have a good time today versus what's going to happen tomorrow. So there's that. I don't know. It evolves as I understand the disease of addiction. Does that answer it?
That answered.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Francis. JW, let's talk about the living clean for a second. Hit on some of those passages that really stand out to you, particularly around the spiritual awakening.
Well, when I read it's on page 23, and it works out why it says, the longer we stay clean, the more evident it becomes that our addiction goes much deeper than the drugs we use. It says, much of our problem seems to center in this search for something to make us feel whole. So what the hell does it mean to be a whole? What does that mean? And so I go to meetings and I say, what does it mean to be a whole human being? And most people I talk to say, I ain't never thought about that. Then I got to this educated man. And he goes, well, there's three aspects of being a human. There's the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. And I thought, shit, I know all about the mental. I've been mental most of my life. Lived in my head when I was a kid. I'd make up. Whatever I saw on TV, I played like I'm that guy. Then the physical, I was hooked on a sensation. Anything that had made me feel different. You know, and I could put together drugs or people, places, things. It didn't really matter. Then this book comes out. And in the third chapter, it gets over here to the end of the first little section. And it says, practicing, we understand, when we understand them better, we're able to act more consistently with what we believe. As we practice spiritual principles, we discover that this doesn't make us spiritual at all. Instead, we are awakening to what has been going on inside of us our whole lives. Spirituality is our natural state. And I thought, that's why I've been so fucked up most of my life. I've been living in an unnatural state, the mental and the physical. And so that spiritual awakening has been happening over and over and over, a little bit more and more. I still don't understand what God is. I use good orderly direction. I'll use the it. Narcotics Anonymous gave me that. You know, he gave me a way around my limited way of thinking when he said good orderly direction. When he said, mental, physical, and spiritual. He gave me a way around what I believed to be the truth. And so my truth has changed a lot because of Narcotics Anonymous. And it's mainly because my higher power, God, shows up with your face on. Evan and I took a trip together where we were together about 7 hours, and we talked for 7 fucking hours, man. And we really agree on this energy of the universe stuff and how we connect through that. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is 12 universal laws and all that shit, you know. I mean, I'm learning more about what that means to me. And I learned it through Narcotics Anonymous. Just one sentence can change my whole perception of who I am and how much I matter. You know, it's crazy.
Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome.
All right, Francis, so
It's going to be okay, guys.
it's going to be okay, everybody. So, Ron, you asked what you intend to do.
Tennessee
Just pull
lost.
us up from the
Tennessee
bottom.
lost.
It didn't go our way. But now we're past it and we can enjoy the rest of the day.
Damn it.
What better place to be when your heart is broken? Right? So, Amy.
Yeah, and your parlay doesn't work out.
Don't use no matter what.
Don't use no matter what. It's not working. There is a solution here. So, Amy, if let's say a young lady who's just gotten clean and come up to you in a meeting and she said, you know, Amy, I really don't feel like I have anything to offer. What would you say to her?
Oh my God. Well, you know, obviously, please keep coming here. You know, you walked in the door, you offered everybody else in here a glimmer of hope, because that's what we do. That's what we do here. We welcome people in, and you just helped so many people by walking in the door. That would probably be the first thing. You know, and I'd just offer to talk with her. Phone number, call me. You want to go get some coffee or lunch, or just I would try to, you know, get to know her and let her know I'm present. I'm here. I'll be present. That's it. That's the main thing. Just be present.
Have you ever had that feeling? Have you ever had that feeling that you didn't have anything to offer?
Oh, heck yeah. When I first walked in the door, and the first time somebody gave me a key to open a church, you know, it's like I do have something to offer. I do have something. So, you know, I would let her know, just keep coming, we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, boy.
All right, Mason.
So you've particularly been involved in a form, I mean, many forms of service, but in a special form of service.
Special.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Boyd is super involved in preserving the message and making sure that we know exactly what our history is. It's very, very, very important thing that him and Chris have worked on for a long time. But, you know, we often talk about what that has done for all of us who've got to see the presentations that you put together, but what has it done for you?
I don't think we have enough time. You know, I started that journey because I just had curiosity. I was at the San Antonio World Convention, and I looked out. I was up on the second tier, looking down at just a floor, a sea of people, and something came over me and said, "I wonder what started this fellowship that saved my life. Saved my life. And that's not my usual terms that I say in my head. And it was that profound. And so I started a journey with Chris. And there's been 2 times in my life that I felt like I was led. Okay? That I literally felt like I was led. And that was coming into recovery. And that was starting this journey here. And the reason I say that is because I was blown away by the doors that were starting to open to us on this history journey. And I'm like, this is not supposed to be happening. And it was really weird. I woke up one day and it was like, what's your job, Lord? My job is just to get up and show up. And let's see what comes at us, you know. And so the gift that Chris and I get is we get to travel around the country and we get to hear the stories, okay? And there's one thing that we do in our basic text presentation that if we have the time, we say, please come up and share what the basic text has meant to you. And that is one of the most enriching moments that I've got stories about what people have told there that just touch my heart, okay? I mean, big time. One of my favorites is about a guy in Florida who talks about finding the basic text in the back seat of his car while he's waiting at the McDonald's waiting to cop, okay? So he picks it up and he just starts reading it. You know, his dealer comes, he cops, he goes, he does his business. You know, whenever, the next 2 days he's there, he picks the book up again. You know, he's reading it, the dealer comes, he cops, he goes away. On the 3rd time, he starts reading it and he leaves and he goes and finds a payphone to call for where a meeting is. I mean, you can't make that shit up, okay? And that stuff just, I mean, the hair on my arms is just, you know, it's like, that's God working right there. So seeing families, man, there was a guy named George Richards who worked on the basic text, and Danny Martino and I went to his house to interview him, and his kids were like, who are these people coming over to interview you? Because George had stopped going to meetings for years because he had to take care of his autistic son growing up. And he couldn't afford the time to go to meetings, okay? And so after they left, you know, they were like, why are they asking you all this stuff, Dad? What's going on? And George told them, and George told them he used to be a member of NA. And they said, Dad, we can take care of our brother now. You go back to meetings. And literally George re-entered the program because of that particular connection right there, you know? And it's like, stories like this are amazing. So I get to experience that and watch that. You know, Mason, it's got to be the same way as what you and Francis are the recipients of all the good things. I mean, we get to listen to y'all's your podcast, and I get so much from it. But the people who are really getting so much from it are you two, you know. And it's the same with Chris and I. It's I've found, Amy talks about it. She says it lights your spirit, Lloyd. And I'll be honest with you, I have a love-hate relationship with it, okay? You know, it's like it fires me up, but then I get overwhelmed with it because of commitments, and I'm like, you know, this. And, but no, my gift in if you want to call it that, is to be able to do the research, to present it as we see it, and to try to continue to do that. You know, now we're working on a website trying to be able to digitize all this stuff and keep it for however long the website will stay up, you know. So that's just, that's where I've found my niche, is that right there. The thing I've experienced right there is by learning the history of what people who did before I came here What it's given me, folks, is a greater and deeper appreciation of what we have today. Because what we've got today is a beautiful fucking thing. And let me tell you something, it was hard fought to get here. So thank you for letting me share.
So Francis, do you have a service-related story that, like, where you may have been burnt out, or, you may have questioned yourself, why do I keep doing this? And then there's something happens and you go, oh, that's exactly why the hell I do this.
All right, so he's asking about my H&I story. I got involved with going into Butte County Jail. I'd never been to jail. I spent the night in the brig when I was in the Navy for possession of marijuana. And then when I got clean, I didn't know, like somebody said, hey, you wanted to go into the jail, there's only one person cleared, will you go? And then I could get clearances. For some reason I thought it ruined my life that I got kicked out of the Navy, but it's not anything compared to having a felony on your record or anything like that. It's almost like it never happened. And so I get clearances. I start going to Butte County Jail. I really kind of questioned why I did that. Why am I going into the jail? I've never been, this is not my experience. So that led me going into Susanville Prison. What is the next thing after my jail experience? And so I start going into Susanville Prison. And we would make these long trips. It's like a 2.5, 3-hour drive, depending upon road conditions. Sometimes we'd have to go a different way in because of icy roads. It's just up in the mountains in Northern California. And so I did that for a number of years. My life progresses. I graduate from college with a degree in social work, and I get a job in Susanville. So I stopped doing the service of going into Susanville Prison because I'm living and working in the community as a CPS social worker. Borrow money to move up there, have big dreams. Someday I'll retire from Lassen County, and the job only lasts a few months, right? And when I get there, I'm scoping out, the Narcotics Anonymous community, and there was none. I try to start a meeting at 8 p.m. across the street from the 7 o'clock AA meeting, and I'm casing out the parking lot. I know you're hiding out in here. There's a meeting across the street of, for addicts. And I befriend some of the people in AA that come over and support the NA meeting, and I'm like, is there anybody like me that's just clean, that's just an addict? And they give me this flyer that says, down in Doyle, call Mike. And I'm like, yes, somebody that's down. And so Doyle is 45 minutes away, and about this same time I get fired from that job. And I call Mike, and I tell him what's going on. And I said I needed to go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. So he comes in from Doyle, the 45 minutes, it picks me up, and then we go the hour and a half out to Reno to go to Narcotics Anonymous. But on the trip, he's like, oh, you're Francis? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you used to go into Susanville Prison. You used to have long hair and a beard and wear a tie-dye. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, you and those guys from Chico came in and carried the message. I became interested in recovery. When I got out, I got my little certificate. I got a job in Doyle and started a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. And, all this time, I'm doing this service that I don't really understand why I'm doing. Constantly question, this is not my experience. I don't have anything to offer. I'm doing it, but like I don't understand why I'm doing it. Like that day, I understood why I was doing it. Like that. Like just bringing a book in or an introductory guide that can be left next to the toilet. Like you never know, like how the service that you do plays out, and especially for you, maybe someday, like the recipient of your kindness or the service that you're doing is going to somehow play out in your future, and you won't even know how that happens. Yeah. I was just fucking with you guys. Chase told me that, like fucking with each other is the love language in this part of the country. And so I just want to tell you guys I love you guys. Thanks.
Not all words of recipient. JW, so I want to ask you about amends. I once heard you say that I'm sorry is not an amends. Why do you feel that way?
Well, my relationship with men was born from the culture I grew up in where, we shamed each other. Back in the 70s, we call it doing the dozen. And I'd say, your mama's so fat, when they haul ass, you got to make 2 loads. And then you'd say something about my mom. And then we'd keep going at it until one of us didn't say nothing. And I was good at getting you to not say nothing, because I'd cut you pretty deep with my word. And when I got to NA, it was the same thing. And so I met this guy and at a poker tournament, and he started in on me during the game. And anyway, our relationship turned into, every time I saw him for the next couple of years, I would say some really hurtful stuff. And it got to a point to where my sponsor came to me one night. We were at a retreat, a sponsorship retreat, really spiritual shit. And so this dude named Big O had triggered me. I heard that word today. And I took it out on Chad. And so Tim came and said, you might not want to go to sleep tonight because you're going to get beat to death with a piece of firewood. And I don't know why. I wasn't scared he was going to beat me to death. It was all the shit that I had said really resonated in my head, And so the next morning I had to ask for forgiveness because I'd shamed him in front of all these people. And his reply was, why would I forgive you? You treat everybody like that. And I said, well, I got to start somewhere. But to make an amends, I couldn't do it again. It wasn't that I said I was sorry and then kept doing it. And hell, I couldn't do it to nobody, because to make the amends, I had to change. And so I had to learn how to pause. I'm having to relearn that with my wife. We had a little incident yesterday where I got angry. And so anger has been a spiritual principle that I practiced most of my life. It's just that I don't like that spirit anymore. It's hurtful. So I'm trying to get back to making amends to the universe again. Because I asked my counselor in prison, I was reading those steps, and I thought, it says here you got to make amends to people. I said, I don't know a majority of the people that I robbed and stole their shit. I don't know who they were. They were fucking victims, How am I going to make amends to them? Because it said, make a list of people you've hurt and go make amends to them. And she said, you make a living amends. I said, what is that? She said, you don't do it again. Don't steal anymore. And then if you can help somebody, you help them. And so I've had to get back to that. I don't give a shit how long I stay clean. I'm still battling that little bitty kid. I got bullied, picked on. And all he had to share was hurt, even after he got grown. And y'all have given me more than that. You've given me something else that. But some days I still share that hurt. And I want to know why. I know why. It's just I want to know how. I had to go to therapy for anger management. I learned some tools. Me and my wife talked about that last night. I said, I'm going to have to really start pausing again because I don't want to hurt you like I did today. And, I heard somebody up here today say that they're still human. You don't get me fucked up with somebody that ain't capable, still capable of doing the treacherous shit that I've done most of my life. Okay? I'm still an addict. My birthday is January the 28th. Look it up in the Just for Today. Everyday addict. I didn't write that book. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Jay. All right, so we're about out of time. So we're going to go through one more time, but all of you have the same question. When Francis and I wrap up a personal interview on the podcast, we ask everybody the same question. What is your message to the newcomer? And so I think that's fitting to be the last question for each of you tonight. What is your message to the newcomer? Whoever wants to start with it.
Again, Amy added, that there is hope, that you don't have to use again, that if you keep coming back, your life is going to get different, and you can find a new way to live and lose the desire to use. And, one of my favorite lines is also, other than we do recover, of course, in time through recovery, our dreams will be realized. And, to be the light, to be the message of hope that for somebody who doesn't feel it, is probably the greatest gift I've ever been given. To be able to give back, I could never, ever, ever give back the amount of peace and joy that I have in my life today. And every day is not rainbows and lollipops and unicorns, of course. I've walked through some tough stuff clean. And there's the other thing, that we can get through anything clean. Things that if you'd told me before I got here I would walk through and stay clean, I would have said, no. And I have. And you all have. And so, just that, being the messenger of hope.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
So my message would be this, and I actually think that I was told this. It's like, if you're new here, just what I would say is give yourself a break, lighten up a little bit, and just see what this fellowship has to offer, okay? And if down the road it's not your cup of tea, it's not a big deal. But just for a while, check us out. We'd love to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Boyd.
I just want to say that we love you. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. And you can recover here in Narcotics Anonymous. You can recover here. It's interesting. We do these episodes. Some of them have been about IDTs, and I have to get over my biases towards MAT. If you, whatever the reason, whatever you think is going to make you different coming into Narcotics Anonymous, we still love you. Whatever I think makes you different, we still love you. There isn't any reason for you not to recover in Narcotics Anonymous. Find a reason to stay. Find your tribe. Get some hugs. Feel the magic of Narcotics Anonymous in your life. I felt that the first day I came here, It gave me something to hold on to, was the hope that Amy was talking about. Like, there's hope here in Narcotics Anonymous that'll allow you to find your place and to come back. Even when your team loses, you can still stay clean. Thanks.
What I would tell the newcomer is just get through today. Don't worry about yesterday or tomorrow. Just focus on right now. This is the only place you can live your life. But please keep coming back because we need you. I believe this. Everybody in this room has got something inside of them they've been carrying their whole life, just for me. And when you come and go, I don't get that. So I try to stay connected to the newcomer as long as I can because I want what they got. I'm still using that idea of, I've been asked what was my drug of choice more. Well, I use that same idea in recovery, and I'm of the belief that it don't matter if you got 1 hour clean, I need to listen to what you got to say because that may be that time I get what you've been carrying your whole life from me. And just keep coming back. Just worry about right now because it's the only place we can live, Thank you.
All right, folks, there you go. Raw and uncut, the panel discussion. Interested in your comments and your thoughts on what you heard in that panel discussion, maybe some possible changes, different questions. Whatever feedback you got will be greatly appreciated. You can leave that feedback at our Facebook page. Just search the Living Clean podcast and comment your thoughts on this bonus episode. That's all we got. We'll be back next week with another episode. See you then.
Thank you for joining us on our Living Clean podcast. This is another platform that we can share our message of recovery, which is any addict can stop using drugs, lose a desire to use, and find a new way to live. Join that no matter what club. You can contact us through text. The number is 931-306-9364.